All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Outskirts Overland. It is week 10. 10! It's a freaking 10! And today we're talking about suspension, tires, alignments, just maybe basic stuff to get some housekeeping stuff out. Go on over there if you're anywhere in the Midwest and you drive a Toyota. Go on over to Toyota Trucks of Arkansas, TTOA on Facebook, and join the group. Give them a follow. They're really cool guys over there. Also, if you work for Go Fast Campers and you ever listen to this, your boy wants to work with you. So again, I got a digital background here going on, and it's a rooftop tent, and it really should be a Go Fast camper. So go ahead and hit up your boy if you ever hear this. And this week I've got Tyson with me. Tyson's a good friend of mine in Arkansas. He's on here with us today. So go ahead.
What's happening, guys? Glad to be on with you, Charlie.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
know we've been hanging out for a while now. I'm super stoked about your podcast. Everything looks like it's going smooth. Been a long time watcher. 10
For
weeks
sure.
already,
Yeah,
brother.
10 weeks. Yeah, it's been
Yeah,
forever, right?
the decade.
So I brought Tyson on today. We're going to BS a little bit just as we're friends, but Tyson also we're talking suspension and alignments and different things. And for a living, Tyson kind of works in that interest industry. So I'll let him talk a little bit about that before we kind of just get into discussing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for a local dealership here in town. I've been in automotive since I was a kid. Heck, I was a neighborhood bike mechanic for the longest time growing up. So got into automotive naturally behind that, and do tires every day at the dealership and that I work at, and yeah, we like to talk about tires, alignment, suspension, all that good jazz tonight. So looking to have some pretty good topics, some good info to pass around. So
Cool. Awesome. So for a living, Tyson does tires, and I have a kind of a funny story about tires with me and Tyson. So I have Falcon Wild Peak AT3Ws on my truck now, 10 plies. Um, and Tyson had recommended those to me probably 2 years ago, and I've put on about three different sets of tires that I didn't like before I finally put them on. So I had to listen to Tyson. I probably saved 3 grand. So he's a decent resource. He
yeah,
himself is getting some new tires this week, though. Tell him about what you're getting.
yeah. So we're gonna take off the Falcon Wild Peak AT3s. I put them on at 8,000 miles on my Forerunner. I've got 66,000 now. Still have 11/32 of an inch of tread on the tires, so they're holding up great. But I fell into like the ultimate sweet, you know, hookup on the tires. So we're going to switch over to the Toyo Open Country AT3s. Comes with a 65,000 mile manufacturer warranty. So life expectancy is 10,000 more than the Falcon. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a little bit longer lasting, get the same results that we did out of the Falcons, but they have definitely a chunkier tread. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that handles in the mud and things like that. The Falcons definitely are not no slouch when it comes to off-roading. I mean, I think that I've never really had like an extreme traction issue, unless it was like didn't matter what you ran, you were going to be stuck no matter what. So I don't feel like the Falcons are just not capable. It's just trying different things, and that way there my information span just widens the horizons. So
Right. And definitely like one thing I wanted to get into, and we can talk about it and we can go back and forth. I know me and you agree on this, but um I had mud terrain tires before, and I know mud terrains versus all terrains is a big topic. Also, 6 ply versus 10 ply is also a big topic because the 10 plies are a little heavier, but they have a stronger sidewall, but they weigh more. And in some of the bigger mud tires, you can't even get them in a 10 ply. But me and you both run 10 ply, and I see that as a almost like a insurance in my opinion
yeah,
to have the thicker tire.
well,
But it's
for sure.
definitely it's definitely a conversation. So Tyson works in Northwest Arkansas where off-roading's big, so he deals in tires all the time. What do you see? Do most people do the 10 ply, or do you have that conversation a lot?
I mean, we have the conversation quite a bit. I mean, I think a lot of people out here, they're used to driving on the dirt roads and things like that. So, like the shell rock, it's super easy to puncture a 4-ply tire. I mean, it just cuts through it like it's a knife through hot butter. I mean, So if they're used to driving on dirt roads a lot, they come in asking for it. The other thing that we do is we qualify the customer. I mean, are you going to be out off roading every weekend, or are you going to just be doing it once in a while? If you're doing it once in a while, 10 ply is not necessarily necessary. But I mean, if you're like, Charlie and myself, we go out a lot. I mean, I think I've been out 10 times this year alone. Trail running, camping, all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, like you just don't want to be out there messing with having a big hole in the sidewall of your tire. I mean, we went down to Frog Bayou Falls a little while ago with a buddy of mine, and he went through two tires, and all he had on was the factory 4-ply Nitto tear grapplers that came on the Forerunner. So, nobody else that was running 10 plies had any other issues. So I definitely agree that it works. It just depends on the application. I mean, if you're not going to be out here doing like a day 4 in the Ozark National Forest up on Morgan Mountain, it's really not necessary. But if it is something that you plan on trailing your rig, which a lot of us are, I mean, you really need to consider putting a heavier duty tire on there.
Right. And I think the thing that I hear the most from people is they don't want to do a 10 ply. They're like, it rides rougher, it's heavier. But at the same time, I mean, I don't want to be changing a tire on a trail or just ruining
No.
my tires. I feel like the 10 ply is more of a protection of your financial investment,
Well, I mean,
personally.
it just goes to everything else. I mean, you're out there in the mud and the dirt and the sand. If you blow a bead, if you blow a sidewall, then you're trying to clean it all out to try to get it to stick with like maybe you're trying to use a flat repair kit or something like that. I mean, it's just not going to be an ideal situation. If you're on the highway and you have a puncture, it's a whole lot different. I mean, I know it's scary to be on the side of the road changing a tire or whatnot, but it's way different experience than doing it on the trail.
Yeah, I mean, it's flat. It's usually flat ground at least,
Yeah, definitely.
right?
Or, you got to get to flat ground on a flat tire. Then you're worried about damaging the wheel and sensors and all that other crap that goes along with that. So,
Well, and also, quite honestly, when you're on the trail, you're not going to getting a tow isn't an option. If you get a flat
eh.
on the side of the highway, we'll talk. We're going to talk about this, guys. So getting a tow is not an option. But if you get a flat on
Uh,
the side of the highway and you want to not do it on the side of the highway, you can AAA it. But
absolutely.
on the trail, I'll let Tyson. I'll lean into Tyson here. He has a unique tow trail stuck situation
Yeah.
that he
So,
was in. So
yeah, we went out to Willem Ford, and the way it took us was the back way from like the south side. So, as we were going out there, the trail that I was trying to access was closed. But looking at the Gaia, and it had a trail all the way up to um, the Buffalo River. And I was like, okay, well, we're just going to take that and see where it leads to. So it led us right to the Buffalo River. I was probably not even a mile away from where I was trying to be at. And the Forerunner got buried to the frame. I was by myself. It was a nightmare. I was stuck for 11 and a half hours. I finally got a hold of a tow company. We had to walk almost 2 miles just to get cell service, just to be able to call. And they came out and got me, but it definitely did not,
so
was not
so
cheap.
let's talk about. So we're talking tires, okay? So I want to talk about this for a second. What did your just offhand? What's 4 new 10 ply tires cost? Just for
I mean,
S's and G's.
you're gonna be looking at 18 to 2 grand for a quality
Right.
tire.
How much was that one tow?
2,400 bucks.
Yeah, guys. So this is just brings me into another point that I talked about earlier. Like, make sure you've got some. I don't even know if in Tyson's situation that recovery equipment would have helped him. Another rig with recovery equipment could have helped him. But just I only bring up what tires cost because just that one tow is like a new set of tires. You know what I
It
mean?
took it took 3 trucks and a tractor to get me out.
Right.
And
And
the tractor had to build a road to get to where I was at just to be able to get the truck down there that was winch ready to
right.
get us out.
And I only bring this up because unfortunately, out of our large group of guys that go, just due to unfortunate nature, Tyson's the only one that's been in this situation. So quite frankly, he would tell you now, and this is off topic of what we want to talk about today, but like if it looks sketch, I think we all now have learned from Tyson's mistake. Get out and walk it. Always get out and
100%.
walk it.
Yeah, for
Because if
sure.
you're, 100 to 150 to 250 pound self is sinking, your 5,000 pound rig's sinking. And
For sure.
I think
Yeah.
I think I think after that happened, me and Tyson also used to just look at water crossings. If you guys are watching this, give it the old. I think I could see a rock down there. That's not too bad, and we just send it. I After this experience, I don't think we're. I think we're all walking stuff.
100%. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Unless I'm with a group, then it doesn't matter. I mean,
Right. But also we went last year. Me and Tyson went last year, and we had a Jeep Cherokee, regular Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk with us.
it was, yep. Mhm.
And this was a new guy to our group, and he came with us. He goes a lot. He's a part of another group of guys I go with that all have Wranglers, Jeep Wranglers, and he came with us. But you've got to also take into account like that dude's. We did some water crossings in the Ozarks. He didn't have a snorkel, and he's way lower, so we had to take a little bit of clearance and I mean, just how tall that vehicle is into account because it was
100%.
lifted, but it's like a size of a Ford Escape.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a littler vehicle, so
And we
it,
stacked them. We stacked them in between 2 capable rigs just in case anything did happen,
with
because if
winches,
we yeah, 100%. If we had to, we were gonna yank them out. So,
yeah,
I mean, knowing that kind of stuff, I mean, if you're not a real strong wheeler, like, not being in the lead and not being in the back is, like, primo for you. If you're new to this and you're new to the off-roading, all I can suggest is follow somebody that has done it before. And if you're out there doing it alone, like, that's cool too, but just make sure that you have the things that you need to get out of said situations. I mean, I had max tracks, I had, ratchet straps. I mean, I even ratchet strapped like 4 blocks of wood around my tires just to kind of dig itself out, and all it did, I mean, it was just quicksand. Everything that I did, it just made it sink even deeper.
right. And this is where I hear people talk too. Like I get it all the time. I don't have any lockers myself, but Tyson has a rear locker in his vehicle and multi-terrain sled. There's just certain situations where you're getting stuck. Like you're
Hun
just like it's happening. Like it don't matter what tires you got, don't matter what locker you got, it don't matter. Blah 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 blah. Gears, you're getting stuck. So
Yep.
that's also something like I hear that so much. Like the more I get into this social media, they're like, "Well, if you had this," and I'm like, "There's no unicorn piss that's lifting me out of this hole. Like
No, definitely
it's just
not.
not
That
happening."
not unless you got a magic wand and you can just, like, wave it
Right?
over it and you're out, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the only way. I mean, I've been on trails too that I've done 100 times, and trail conditions change week to week, and
I
I've
mean,
gotten stuck in areas that I've gone through 1,000 times.
we just did that last time. We just did that Union School Trail again, and that's not the last time you've been out, but that's the last time
Mm-mm.
that's the last time me and you went out
Yep,
wheeling, not camping, but wheeling.
yep.
And it was washed out quite a bit different than it was last time we went on it. I mean, you almost can't even predict. I think that's also like we're going to get into so much stuff here that's off topic, but like you almost can't even predict a trail based off if you look at Onyx or you look at Gaia and you look at iOverlander and they're like, oh, 6 out of 10. Well, like this year in Arkansas was a lot wetter year than last year. And I've already seen far more washout, trees
Mhm.
down, like high wind year, high rain year. Trails that might have been a 4, they're now like a 7
Yeah,
in
yeah.
places. Like
Yeah,
that
we were just
happens.
at Morgan Mountain 2 weeks ago, and Chris almost rolled his vehicle out there. I mean, it's
Right.
just the hole that he was in was a mile and a half long.
Yeah, and Jay just said it, and I'll have Jay on next week, my buddy Jay. But yeah, Jay said trail ratings change by the month, and I
Look
could,
at
and
look
and
at
and
Ty.
yeah,
Ty
that's
was like, "Was not a good time."
yeah, yeah. And
That's
Ty is Tyson's fiance. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, and they do trail ratings change all the time. So like, take some of that with a grain of salt. But then again, back to the first point we made: get out and walk. Get out and
Yeah,
walk.
100%.
Get out and walk.
And a lot of people think that, if you have a mud tire, it's gonna be more capable than an all-terrain. I mean, I can tell you right now, and Charlie and I have talked about this. I mean, the ride quality on a mud terrain versus an all-terrain just on normal highway driving is night and day difference. And I feel like that an all terrain at the right PSI, the right kind of vehicle can be just as capable as any other mud tire.
Yeah. And 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 I had mud tires. And my big thing with them is they were actually quite a bit stickier,
Hmm.
but like the wheeling continued to get like, okay, I got them scrubbed in. Before they were scrubbed in, they kind of sucked. But after I got them scrubbed in, and what scrubbed in means is you kind of get them cut up a little bit so they grip rocks and stuff better. For those of you
Hmm.
that don't, that'll listen later. But once they were scrubbed in, they were great. But kind of as time went on, they got crappier.
And they
Where
do.
the
They start cupping and they start, riding super rough. Like, I don't get me wrong. Like, if you're in the mud 24/7 and you're on the highway, 10 miles like a week, but everything else is in the mud, then a mud terrain is the way you need to go.
and quite frankly, for like me and Tyson, we both have rooftop tents. We carry a lot in our rig. Like, I don't think a mud terrain's even your best bet for a heavy rig. And
I don't think so. I mean, I
like
watched those guys with the dualies and they were, running to the oil rigs and stuff, and they all wanted, mud terrain tires and stuff like that. And they would always look like crap. It was just all beat up. I mean, they weren't wearing even. If it's your everyday rig, dude, I'm telling you right now, a good all-terrain tire or even a rugged terrain like the cross between a mud terrain and an all-terrain, that would be the way to go as well.
and
Uh,
and I was just
yeah,
gonna say, we got this middle ground now, the RT,
yeah,
which for those of you that don't know what an RT is, an AT is like a more aggressive. It's like a more aggressive, longer lasting, more wide range of weather tire. So that's what an AT is. An RT is going to be a little more aggressive, but not quite a mud tire. So it's going to handle water a little better as different siping for that. And that's a relatively new subclass of tire. Now, I think me and Tyson have both looked into RTs. His new Toyos, there's an RT and they're freaking sick.
yeah,
And
they
I
are.
like my Falcons and they got an RT and they're really sick. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell anybody yay or nay on those tires. Honestly, I didn't spend my money there. Have you had any people get them and you get any reviews outside of what we could watch on YouTube on those?
Oh, absolutely. I had a guy just the other day got him for his Tundra. It was the Falcon Wild Peak RTs. Actually, they come with a 50,000 mile manufacturer warranty. So I mean, you still get a mileage warranty. So that means that they will hold up at least 50,000. So that's really cool that an aggressive tire like that even does have a mileage warranty. But they were super nice. He said that when he drove him home, he wasn't like rattling his teeth out or anything like that. So, I mean, to be expected. We'll see how they last, over time. But nothing that I've seen that somebody has had any like major issues with. Most of the time, it's mud tires, and they're complaining that they're chopped or they're vibrating, and they don't know why. They've aligned it, they balanced it. Doesn't matter what you do. Once you get that chopping in the tire, the only thing to do is to replace the tire.
Yeah, you just be chasing it with balancing it. The biggest scare I had with my mud tires that I think ended it for me is you hydroplane like a mother. So if you drive, I drive my truck every day. So like just like Tyson said, but like if you're anywhere that gets any type of water, they're damn near dangerous.
Yeah.
Driving on like the highway.
And that's the thing. I mean, they're not rated. I mean, they're rated for the speed potential of your vehicle, but there's no way that it's going to hold up as good as like an all terrain or an RT. They're not made to be driving fast down the road. They're not made to primarily be on the highway. Nothing like that. So
Right. So we're gonna get into other things. So uh, unfortunately to my bank account, I just was underneath my truck and I kind of had to. My whole entire front suspension needed replaced in my truck. I upgraded my suspension. I guess probably about a year and a half ago. I put Toy Tech um, springs and struts on my truck, and I still had stock control arms. And I went under it. I just rotated my tires a couple weeks ago, and I was under there. One shock was shot. The bottom bushings on both shocks were shot. Both outer tie rod ends were shot, and my upper ball joints were there's not even shots, not even the word. They were like they left the chat. So I last week I got new struts, new control arms, and new tie rod ends as well on my truck. Um, I went. I was at 2.5 inch lift. They were adjustable, so I could have taken them up. I actually took my truck down a half inch, uh, trying to save the ball joints a little bit from the angle of the control of the excuse me the CV shafts. But I went back to 3 inch. It the truck rides a lot better. And in the meantime, while I was doing all this, my my sway bar end links had also left the chat. So
So speaking of that, you took them all the way off. So how is it
correct.
running with no sway bar links? Because I had a
So
Jeep, and there was times where we got off the trail, and I never put the sway bars back in, and it was. I'm not gonna say it was sketchy. It's definitely a different feeling than driving with them in, but it was definitely doable. But I've heard a lot of people in the Toyota world that say that don't ever take the sway bars off, blah blah blah. So I'm
so
just
yeah,
curious on how it's running.
my truck for context, because my truck isn't stock width either. I do have 285 tires, and I do have inch and a quarter spacers. So I do have a 3 inch wider truck essentially, and I also have wider tires. So I wouldn't say this would apply to everybody, but yeah, I deleted the front sway bar. There is no rear sway bar. But while I did my struts and springs this time, I have a front steel bumper and a winch. I got heavy load struts, and I also have constant heavy load leaf springs in the rear. I did not notice a difference in my truck's
Awesome.
driving. I didn't. Um, and we have, me and Tyson have a friend that has his sway bars removed, and it's a situation.
Yeah, it gets
Quite
it gets kinda gnarly sometimes, and then, like, I don't know if it's like a sensor or what, but it was, after we did the alignment, it wasn't happening as frequent, but, like, the ABS module was coming on and things like that, so, there's definitely some sensors, things that'll probably interrupt with that in highway speeds, but definitely not anything off road, but
right.
I was
And
just curious on if you've noticed anything like that, ABS kicking in, traction control kicking in. I mean,
I've
all these
noticed.
tr
No, go
go
ahead.
ahead. All these new cars, they just have so many different traction control. I mean, with my 4Runner, if you don't have it in park and press and hold the traction button, it'll release traction control off the ABS, but it still has traction control in the transmission module. So, you can never I mean, you can get it off, you have to put it in park, you gotta press and hold it, and then it'll take everything off, but, just taking regular traction control off, it doesn't necessarily stop the transmission control module from kicking in, some kind of traction control, so
Yeah, and I think a caveat here is Tyson drives a fifth gen TRD off road forerunner. Our friend Tristan, whose vehicle is a little sketch, it's a Lexus GX, so it's fancier. So Tyson's fancier than me. Tristan's fancier than Tyson. I'm in an SR5 Tacoma. It's pretty well manual. Um, so for me, I noticed it just rides a lot better over potholes because my tires can just do their own thing.
nice. Yeah,
Nothing's
that's really
connected,
nice.
so it's not doing it's actually just ba da da. So
Did you
it's
ever consider the sway bar straps? Those are
so
pretty popular.
so yeah, I dropped my sway bar. I did a sway bar relocation on it, but I was actually just with it being lifted and off roading as much. I was on my third set of sway bar bushings,
Dang,
and
yeah.
I was like, "This is just ridiculous." And I'm pretty active on the Tacoma forums, and everybody's been telling me to just throw it in the trash. I didn't throw it in the trash, by the way, but I did just remove it to see what I thought about it. And I it, it really, like, if it made any difference, I don't notice it.
Yeah, and what's crazy to me is like not to hype up Jeep because I'm a Toyota boy and I love it. I had a Jeep, but Jeeps are just their sway bar access points are way easier than a Toyota. So in a Toyota, you have to commit to either no sway bars or running sway bars because it's not in a convenient location where like on the Jeep, I mean, heck, everybody and their mother sells the sway bar disconnect, like quick disconnects. I mean, some of them come with electronic locking, you know, that kind of stuff. The new 6th gen Forerunner is going to have, you know, electronic disconnecting sway bar links, which I think is a huge upgrade for Toyota, but they're way behind times. I mean, Jeep's had that for hell 10 years. I don't even know how long. They've had it for a while though.
It's
I
been on
mean,
the Rubicon for a long time.
a long time. So, I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like Toyota's really starting to gear their vehicles into, you know, what we all want them to be, you know, off-road capable and things like that out of the box.
Mm.
You know, the new TRD Pro Tundra, you can run 37s with no lift kit, factory suspension. It will not rub. You don't have to cut anything. They literally will slap on and roll out the bay. I mean, that is cool. I mean, I don't know any other manufacturer that you can run 37s besides maybe like a what is that Chevy Silverado, that's the big bad boy edition. Maybe
Oh, yeah.
those.
The ZR2.
Yeah, maybe those could run a 37 or a 35 from the factory,
Bronco
but
Bronco probably could run a 37.
yeah, I think it's just on the Badlands edition comes with
But the
factory 35s, but
Broncos, and I just gotta say it, like, people will listen to this later, but man, the only time I've been wheeling and a vehicle has broke, that vehicle was a new Ford Bronco.
dude,
Every freaking time. I've not had, you could say what, there could be all the hate here. I'm not hating on nothing. That's a fact. Never broke a Jeep, never broke a Toyota anything of any year.
mm-mm,
But that new Bronco, two door, four door, it's a tie rod ends break. You'll just wheel just gone.
mhm.
Freaking one guy recently just went through a water crossing, killed his alternator because it's down low. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I
and I wrote service for Ford, and there was all kinds of recalls on them, and there was all kinds of problems. I mean, I'm not a big fan, but to each their own. If that's your vehicle, then you know I'm sure you worked hard for it, and that you know not talking smack. Just make sure that you have everything dialed in. You know, have replacement parts in case you do break down.
be aware of its very glaring shortcomings. Like, and again, I don't hate Ford. I've been out with Raptors. They don't break. I
No,
mean,
I
like
mean,
it's a specific something is wrong. Something just didn't happen right with the new Bronco. I think it
I mean,
looks
it's
freaking sick.
they got to work out all their bugs like any other auto manufacturer. I mean, you
Yeah,
never
and now
buy the first model of anything. The Gen 6 Forerunner, I would stay away from that for right now and just see how it goes, honestly. I mean, I'm
yeah,
not a huge fan of the twin turbo and the hybrid. I mean, water and electricity doesn't mix. Water and turbos don't mix. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on.
low RPMs and turbos don't mix. Well,
That,
you'll end
yeah,
up
that
over
too.
boosting the turbo and you'll be wearing your turbo seals out and it just yeah. Anyways, I think you're going to be able to make the new ones faster than shit with tuning though. I mean, I bet you can make them fast.
Oh, I bet you can too. And the fact that it's using a hybrid motor to assist for more horsepower, more torque, you know, you're not wasting money and fuel economy that way. So that's kind of cool
Right.
because I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I get 13 miles to the gallon on my lifted Forerunner, and that's on a good day downhill with the wind in the back. But you
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
so
I'm right there with you.
I'm hoping that, you know, it's going to improve fuel economy, especially when you start doing stuff. But you also have to remember, like, you know, if you buy a newer vehicle, like 6th gen Forerunners ain't going to have lift kits readily available. They're not going to have front bumpers readily available. You're going to be the guinea pig for everything that comes out. I mean, the 5th gen Forerunner has been out for years, and, you know, the Forerunner in general has been out forever. But I mean, they haven't changed the 5th gen for what? It's like 25 years or something crazy, you know.
Something
So I mean,
nuts.
it's like it's been around forever and it needs an update, don't get me wrong, but the problem is with all the current restrictions on the EPA and this and that, like you're just getting into stuff that creates more problems in my opinion. I mean,
Well,
as it
and
is, everything is electronically powered.
and that's what I was gonna say. I think they're making them far more electronic, but they're offering trim levels that we want. I think they're trying to wedge themselves in the middle of what the aftermarket would make up for with like the Trail Hunter version
Yeah,
of
I
both.
mean, absolutely. And the
Honestly,
TRD off road. I went with a fifth gen TRD off road because it has a manual shift in four wheel drive. Like that is
Mm,
one less electronic component that I have to deal with. It still has a actuator on the front diff, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have two electronic actuators like you have in your
correct.
truck, because those actuators they ain't cheap.
I've
And
replaced
and
one of mine already
yeah,
due to
and I
water.
think and was that the cheaper or the more expensive one that
It
you had to
was the
replace?
cheaper one. Yeah,
Right.
it was like 120 bucks. The more expensive one is actually you have to remove the diff.
You got to remove the whole transfer case. Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
remove the transfer case. You got to
Yep.
separate it from the transmission. There is
Hey,
tricks and ways to do it, but it has to be aligned properly. I'm telling you right now, like you can watch a YouTube video, they pop it right out, pop it back in. That's all fine and dandy, but just remember, all of that stuff has to be timed properly. So if you don't get it in proper, you're going to be redoing the job just because you can't get it into four wheel drive, and that's why it is an expensive repair because you do have to drop that, and the actual actuator is expensive. I mean, out of pocket price is probably 300-400 bucks at least, if not
yeah.
more.
And my truck, unlike the Forerunner, and I think both new ones are going to be more online with my third gen Tacoma. It's like a turn knob, but you can't go from two to four low. I have to go two to four high to four low. It has to engage in four high to go
Hmm.
to four low. And
Yep.
that is actually sometimes. So this is what Tyson. We always talk about Tyson. He stays in two wheel drive, and I'm never in two wheel drive. Well, that's because if I get stuck on an obstacle, like I can't just go in four low. Like
Yep.
it doesn't. My truck literally that doesn't happen. Like it can't
Right.
do it.
Well, and
And
that's part of like getting the challenge, like to see how capable your vehicle is, to in my opinion, to run in two wheel drive as far as you can. If you don't know how far you can go in two wheel drive, then how are you going to know the capabilities of the vehicle? And I'm not saying everybody has to do it. It's just what I choose to do. Everybody thinks it's crazy when I go up all these crazy hills and I'm in two wheel drive, and I'm like, yeah, I just did that in two wheel drive. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you never know until you do it.
they all say stuff like that when we do these harder trails. And outside of that though, like they also have to consider like they're like, "Oh man, you just did that." But like once we get off the trail, look at the damage on our vehicles too. Like I and I'm not saying that our vehicles are tore up by any means, but like we also we've also accepted that fate to be honest with everybody. So like again, if you're really more worried about like if you're in two wheel, you're gonna slide your back end around more, and it's more likely you might hit a tree or a rock.
100%. Yeah. And then that's the other
But
thing too. Like, within reason, if I'm around an obstacle that I know that I'm going to slide in two wheel drive, I'll lock it into four wheel just so I don't have trail
yeah,
damage. Like, we're not out there to blow this thing up, but at the end of the day, like, if I don't have to run in four wheel drive, dude, that saves gas. That saves wear and tear on axles. That saves wear and tear on, front differential transfer case and things like that. I mean, it's just the less that you can do it, the better off you are.
right.
And to Jay's point, four low is better for the engine components and the drivetrain, but also like when Chris was out there and he was in four high, he got that transmission over temp code pop up.
Yeah,
Because it's struggling in four high. That's higher RPM. So that's like if you're driving down the highway and things like that. Four low is when you're doing 10 to 15 miles per hour max.
yeah.
So I don't. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles that require four wheel drive in the Ozarks, but there's a
And I
lot of dirt road driving too. And if you're pounding, you know, 10 or 15 miles on a dirt road, the last thing you want to be in is either A, four low going 10 miles an hour, or B, in four high for no reason.
yeah, getting your transmission super hot, your converter super hot.
Yeah, it's
But
smoking that fluid down there. Yeah.
also, I find that four high is or four high, excuse me, four lows just really most important when I'm going downhill on obstacles because it's given that major reduction in gears and the engine
Yeah,
braking
absolutely.
versus you're using your brakes.
Yep, yep. And that's the other thing too is like all of these auto manufacturers, they all have Tiptonic shifters where you can select your gear. For low first gear, you can climb mountains for low first gear. No lockers. I don't care what you got. For low first gear, that thing will just crawl. And that's really what you want. especially, in some of these, obstacles that you face and things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, like lockers are important, but are they required? No. I mean, you don't have to have lockers. I mean, you might have to take different approach angles. You have to take into the consideration that this is my primary drive axle. I want to keep that one on the ground as much as possible, things like that. But
Right.
for the most part, I mean, you can still do it. You might just take a little bit longer to get over obstacles than somebody that has it. So,
And also, like, as we talk about like suspension and lifts and tires, like there's very few obstacles. Again, we've been on some trails where you cannot get around a pretty gnarly obstacle, but I say it better than 60% of the time there's a bypass. So
yeah,
that
and that's the other thing too is like, some of the bypasses are gnarlier than the regular trail. People just didn't get out and walk it.
and exactly, that's what I was about to say, and that goes back to our point. Walk it, but that also goes back to Tyson's point. Don't be a lead vehicle if you're not competent and experienced on the trail, because I mean, quite frankly, the lead vehicle is the guinea pig. Period. So
And it doesn't matter how many times you've been down that trail because it could change day to day.
correct. And you just don't know. So don't. Yeah, that's just a point that I always bring up. Like, don't be the lead vehicle if you have some type of like potential shortcoming, because that's how you will get stuck. If the
Yes,
if the
100%.
lead vehicle is a little more built and you see that vehicle just even struggle, and you're like, nah, that's when you bypass.
Right, 100%. And also, you just gain confidence by doing it. Like I remember Chris and I's first experience in his Tacoma, and I was in between my Jeep and Forerunner. I had a Camry at the time, and he was like, "Hey, let's go out to the Ozarks." And he was like, "All right, cool." We get in his Tacoma, and he's got a little lift on it and some tires, and man, we had a great time, but it was a total different experience because he didn't really off road a whole lot, so it was definitely new for him. He was like, "Hey, do you think I could do this?" We were out there by ourselves in 2.5 hours away from home, no cell service, like no radios. This is like brand new into all this out here in the Ozarks, and he was having a good time. I was having a good time, but it was stressful, And then as you do it more, he's out there just trying to roll forerunners now.
Yeah. Well, and
But
that's another thing, like, and I bring it up on this stream and this podcast a lot, but like Jay's commenting a bunch. Jay goes weekly. Tyson
yeah,
goes at least monthly. I go at least monthly. Johnny goes at least monthly. Like, our whole friend group is going a lot. Like, so when we go out anymore, I mean, it's changed, but when we go out anymore, not only do we have more experience, we also have built our stuff better. Like, so we're just doing it. But sometimes we get up to other people, and there's this real weird comparison that happens. So sometimes, we'll stop at a major stopping point, whether it's a burger joint or a historical site, and there'll be other people, and I'm usually in the back. I'm usually last. Um, and I will see some of those rigs, kind of see what our rigs look like, and then start following us, and then they're
mhm,
no longer following us. Um,
100%.
so like, just again, like, get your experience slowly as well. If you see a Jeep Rubicon on 40s and you just think you got big balls, I mean,
I've seen him chicken out on stuff that I'm like, dude, I'd do that in my Forerunner.
but
You know what I
just
mean?
just
Like,
kind of read the room a little better. Don't just assume because a truck looks away, because really the experience of like understanding the balance and momentum is way more important than the lift.
how many
Like,
mall crawlers have you seen that never taken their vehicle off road?
well, and mall crawlers that never taken them off road, and there's a lot of stuff that in concept looks cool but does not work well.
Yeah, the
And
functionality for sure.
yeah, like, and I think, again, we're all almost 40, like, and we've been doing this a long time, like messing with stuff. And I think I said it last week, but like, there's enough of us, and I have a Tacoma, and Chris had a Tacoma, and the rest of you guys have some version of you know,
SUV Toyota. Yep.
Toyota 4Runner, really.
Mhm.
Jay's gonna be offended by that. I'm sorry. Jay has a we'll call it a Land Cruiser Prado. He's got a GX 460. Tristan has a GX 470. But either way, they're all a similar. They're all a similar independent front suspension.
I'm
So
telling you
we.
right now, those Lexuses with the A-Tracks and a lift kit, I mean, they are capable
Oh,
freaking vehicles,
that new
and they have
550 is sick.
so much room compared to a 4Runner, compared to a Tacoma. I mean, you have kids, I have kids.
And
Dude,
they got V.
packing car seats in the back of a Tacoma or a 4Runner, it's a nightmare, bro.
Yeah, I have 3 of them.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all about like if money was no option, like Sequoia Pro, 90 grand, sign me up.
Oh,
You know what
for
I mean?
sure. Yeah, for
But
3-inch lift,
yeah,
37s.
nobody's
Let's go.
running a nine. Yeah, I'm not buying a vehicle for
Oh,
90K. I don't care
not
what it
happening.
is.
No. No,
I
my
remember
bumper's
when
held
like
on with zip ties at the moment. I'm not doing I'm not doing that
my
with
neighbor in like
the 90K.
2005 bought a SRT Viper for $84,000 brand new off the lot. And I'm like looking at the sticker on the Sequoia Pro for 90 grand. I'm like, what?
Wild,
There's no
dude.
way. And that's not even the expensive one. They have
It's
the
crazy.
capstone with 22s going for like 100, 110.
It's nuts, man. And they got that Jeep's got that big Grand Wagoneer, and they're
Yeah.
trying and it's got the new Jeep Straight Six, Hurricane. I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I try to keep up because I do this with like most overlanding platforms. The Nissans, the Jeeps, the
Yeah.
Toyotas,
I
you
mean,
know.
Chris had a Nissan Xterra Pro 4X
Great
before his
vehicle.
Tacoma. It was awesome. That thing had
Yeah.
locking diffs. It had four low, four high. It had the lights on the top of the rack. It came factory with a roof rack. I mean, dude, how could you go wrong with that? I mean,
I
it's
think that's one of the better, not necessarily budget because everything's expensive, but I do think that the Xterra is you're not paying that Toyota tax.
you're just missing that Titan right now. Just stop it.
Dude, I had my Titan was a Pro 4X
It
and it
was.
was a sweet.
It was.
Man, it was a comfortable. The Tacoma's more of a it's more of like a homemade go-kart. It's
Yeah.
kinda
I
it's
mean,
a
the
little
big V8. I mean, come
yeah,
on,
it's
dude. I knew you
no,
loved that truck. I mean, don't get
I
me
did, but
wrong,
it
but
had to I couldn't it just wouldn't do. I would have had, I'd had it would have been so bodied. Like it just
it's
wasn't.
just too wide. It's too long.
Yeah,
You need to be
it was too
small and nimble.
wide, it was too long. I mean, in some ways it just didn't have I just felt like it didn't even have the same like articulation, honestly, that my Toyota now has, tons. I can hardly get a jack with a 8x8 to get it even tire off the ground
Well,
anymore.
and that's what a lot of people don't understand is that, on your factory suspension, it's only going to go down so far and it's only going to come up so far. Most of the time your upper control arm hits the
Ring.
the spring or the front strut before it ever gets to its full flex of the spring or the strut. So, that's really where you have to start making decisions. I mean, I think that I'm kind of at that point right now where, a suspension upgrade would definitely change the level of wheeling, the level of comfortability out there. Um, you know, but is it totally necessary? I mean, you've been wheeling for a while. You had to replace some parts because they were worn out. That's where your pre-trip checkouts come into play. I mean, you haven't really been wheeling that rough this year a whole lot
Oh,
anyways. And that was all just from your last year's, Colorado and the Ozarks. And I mean,
yeah,
you were pounding some freaking pavement last year, dude.
a lot. So I did a lot of long trips last year, but I've been aware my upper control arms were very, very close to done. I was very surprised my shocks were done, honestly. But
Yeah,
I
that
think
is
that's
pretty surprising because it's a Bilstein shock from the factory. But
so
I mean,
I
that just
thought
also shows how much weight you put on it,
that's
and
what I was
it's
gonna
probably
say.
stressing it.
I didn't have my steel bumper in my winch, when I put this last lift on. The new one is heavy load springs. They're bigger shocks with more fluid so they won't fade as well. They're different valving. I think that's gonna I do and I'm not a huge suspension guy, but that's one thing I would ask anybody from my experience calling any suspension shop that that carries suspension. I would make sure to let them know what you're driving, how you're driving it, and how much it weighs
Or what your
because
plans are, because, I mean, maybe
for
you're not at the
sure.
stage where you have bumpers and rooftop tent and stuff like that. How many people have gone down that road where they upgrade the suspension and they got it dialed in, and then they're like, "Man, you know what? I really want a bumper. I run a rooftop tent," Then they start going down that rabbit hole, and then, dude, next thing you know it, you're, like, maxed out on your spring loads and things like that, and you're just like, "Why does it feel like I'm driving a tank all the time?" Well,
Like
because
a
they're
and
worn out.
I was getting the wave, so
Yeah.
but that's exactly me. I didn't have steel bumpers. I was sleeping in the back of the rig. I have steel bumpers all the way around, steel sliders all the way. I have steel sliders now. I have a rooftop tent. I have a deck system. I mean, but I now have heavy load springs and shocks on all
Yeah, and I
four
mean,
corners, and it makes a big difference.
if you're running a drawer system, a deck system, you're fully loaded, ready to go. Like, I mean, you have the refrigerator in there, you got your
Yeah,
power banks, you got solar. I mean, you're literally, if you jumped in your truck tonight, drove 2 hours away, you could set up camp and be ready. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Throw the food in the cooler. Sometimes you even carry food in your refrigerator. I know that. I mean,
yeah.
so you're literally dialed in to do it at any time. So if you're carrying that weight, driving down the road, there's a lot of things that you have to factor in. Do I need bigger brakes? Do I need better suspension? Do I need better tires? If you're running a 6-ply tire right now, or a 4-ply, Charlie, if you had 4-ply tires, they wouldn't even sustain the weight of the vehicle at this point.
I don't think so. No. And for those of you that'll listen, my rig weighs 5,700 pounds with me in it, and water and food. Now, my
But that
girlfriend,
doesn't count. Yeah, the
that doesn't
girlfriend,
count
the kids,
Ladina, the
everything else.
kid.
Yeah.
Yep, that doesn't count Ladina, the kids. That doesn't, and those are, hundreds of pounds more. So I'm
And
probably
yeah,
6,000 pounds.
and if you're really thinking about it, if you're on a 2-day trip, you don't pack as much food as you do with a 5-day or a 6-day
Correct.
or a
Or
7-day.
water.
Or water. I mean, and
Right.
then, or are you making stops to buy food, during the trip? Like, that's cool too. I mean, if you're anything like us, we don't want to be in the city. We're going to pack everything we need. And if we don't have it, guess what? We ain't got it, you know,
Yep.
unless it's like a dire necessity to live, we're just without it. If you forgot it, oh well, we'll do it next time
Exactly.
or whatever the case may be. I mean, there's plenty of times where I've forgotten coffee and I'll borrow your coffee, or
Yeah.
you've forgotten
Or
monsters and I'll give you
yep.
monster, like whatever. That's part about going with a group.
Yes.
You can all build off of each other, so
Absolutely. And like even when it comes to like silverware, plates, whatever. But you brought something up. You brought up brakes. So brakes is something that I did. I did bigger brakes on my truck. I did a power stop bigger brake kit. But again, the Tacoma doesn't have four-wheel discs like these fancy guys with their Lexuses and their Forerunners. But I did do bigger brakes on it because my very first trip with my truck, we were coming back down a mountain in Arkansas, and I lost my brakes. My brakes went, and I was downshifting. I was engine braking, but the brakes just couldn't handle the truck at that point. So I
yeah.
did
I
upgrade
mean,
the brakes, and it's night and day better now. But I got carbon ceramics on my truck now.
but the only way you learn that is by out there doing it.
Correct.
You
Yeah,
can't just be sitting at home wondering what you need. You got to
well,
go out there and test it, and then you
and
find out, well, that sucked. I'm not doing that again.
correct. And that brings us. Me and Tyson were talking earlier before we got on here, but that brings up the thing we were talking about too. Like, let's get into how about don't go to all these expos and spend all this money to go shop for stuff that you don't even know you do or don't need. And now you got
100%.
And now you got Mr. YouTube's fully built truck, and you go out and you're like, this sucks. Well, you never even gave yourself a chance to find your own identity. You don't even,
100%.
you just got whatever
I
looked
mean,
cool.
things that work for you don't work for me. Things that work for
Correct.
me don't work for you. I mean,
Absolutely.
Chris has a drawer system. I don't have a drawer system. Would I like a drawer system? Absolutely. But what I want in a drawer system, nobody builds it that way. So now we're looking at a DIY project, and maybe they don't build it that way because it would cost too much money to build it the way that I want it. But that gives me the fluidity to do the things that I want to do with it because I've been out there. I've seen you guys with your struggles with your drawers and
Mhm.
the hardships and the positives. I've learned all of that just from watching you guys go through whatever it is that you go through. I mean, you
Absolutely.
DIY'd your drawer set and you ended up back with where you were at with the
Yeah, I ended
Titan
up
with the
back
deck
at a
system.
deck. And one thing that you guys, well, and I don't know if Jay does, um, but I don't carry a table. I don't carry like you guys carry like a kind of like a camp table, like a full size table. I
Yep,
don't carry a table.
I've got a lifetime table that I like to set up, but I do that because you have a built-in table with the tailgate. I mean,
Correct.
you have that
Absolutely.
access. I mean, like if you drive a Lexus or a Land Cruiser and it has the fold down, rear hatch, then you can use that as a table too. It's totally easy to do. On a Forerunner, I have a hatchback. You're only going to get so much space out of that, and it's not like I can conveniently lay a table like a Jeep where they have them on the back hatch there where it just folds down. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally just a do you go and buy a $5,000 rear bumper to be able to put a table on it?
Right. Absolutely. And
I
Jay
mean,
just
that's
said
insane.
Jay's not into a table either. I'm like anti table. I got my spare tire under the truck. I'm not really pro swing out, honestly. I'm like, I just don't know that I want that much my truck to be that much longer,
I
quite
think
frankly.
I think having a swing out has its pros and its
Definite.
cons. So what a swing out does for people with forerunners and things like that, it opens up the ability to take your water cans, fuel cans, your trasharoo,
Put a table on it.
put a table on it. You can put your max tracks up there. I mean, it frees up a lot of interior space that otherwise you would have to have some other kind of solution, sea suckers, but
Right.
it's a multi thing. It's a multi-purpose thing, right? So you get the added protection of having a steel bumper. So you're not damaging the plastics. You can scrape that thing across some rocks. If it gets scraped up, you just spray it with whatever coating that it's on there
Yeah.
or
Paint.
black, make it whatever,
Yep.
and then, you move on with life. But right now, like I don't have replacement front and rear bumpers. I had to do a Viper cut on the front bumper because I was scraping everything. So that's an easy solution. But I was okay with cutting my truck at
Oh yeah.
10,000 miles. A lot of people are not okay with that. But at the end, if you end up doing a replacement bumper, they have to cut those pieces off anyways. So that's kind of where I drew the line and was like, I'm going to do this because I'm tired of damaging the plastic, and it freed up so much more space.
Yeah, for sure. And and back to like equipment, like one thing that I will tell you right now is you guys could spend $300 on camp chairs to have the newest, fanciest, lightweight camp chair. And it's gonna be cool
Chris,
and it's gonna be small.
Chris, if you're watching, this ain't a dig, buddy. I'm sorry.
Oh, Chris, is Chris doing this?
I, Chris
Um,
has gone through like 5 sets of camping
so
chairs.
I didn't even this is not even a dig on Chris. This is just a struggle that I even have. Like I watch reviews on reviews on reviews, and guys, the little chairs suck. They suck so bad.
I mean, you
Like,
remember when we went to Rendezvous, Ladina was giving you the hardest time
dude,
because you brought those little
I
chairs
brought the
and they
little
just weren't
chairs.
comfortable.
They're just
But
not. No.
again, it was comfortable for you guys in Colorado because you guys were moving, you
Moving
were
way
constantly
more.
going. So you weren't
Absolutely.
sitting,
Nope.
at Rendezvous, Big Iron, those are 2, 3, 4 day events. And 90% of the time you're sitting waiting for the next thing to happen, the
Or
next class, or
or
whatever
you're
the
even
case may be.
carrying your chair to somebody else's camp to sit with them. Like again, just guys, I would tell every single person out there to go get the cheap academy chairs. Do not spend any money on any other chair.
Or the
Just go.
Napa chairs. I mean,
Whatever. Exactly.
Napa carries those backpack chairs for
Yep.
$20 a piece,
Yeah. Don't get
and
too
there ain't
invested.
no different than, these
Oh
high dollar ones.
no. I think I probably have. I mean, I definitely have some high dollar things, but some of the high dollar stuff I have could very easily be extremely cheap stuff. and
Oh,
be just
1,000%. Yeah,
fine. Like,
absolutely. I mean, I don't get me wrong, we've got 9 of those $5 Academy chairs. I mean, why not? If
yeah,
you
why
got
wouldn't you?
kids, dude, they tear crap up left and right. Buy them a $5 Academy chair. If
Chuck it out
you
when it gets
and
trashed.
Yeah, and if you and mama want a nice chair, then y'all spend the money for the nice chair, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I got a GCI rocker. They're
What
50, $60.
exactly. I would say right now, the GCI rocker is the goat. Like Tyson has a different GCI rocker than Tyson and his fiance have them. So before I met Tyson, I was rocking the GCI rocker. The GCI rocker was not new here, but that I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. It, I would highly recommend that chair, and I have spent money on chairs, but that GCI rocker, man,
I mean, I don't know if you've ever been on GCI's website, dude. They've got all the cool stuff,
I
and
don't even
it's
know.
not the cheapest and it's not the most expensive. I mean, you can
Right.
spend millions of dollars with these companies, but GCI really has some cool stuff. Like I got 3 stainless steel plates that are camping plates, and they were like $5 a piece. I mean,
Nice.
in like these other places, I mean, hell, Walmart had a full set for like $60. And I'm like, I'm not spending $60 on plates. I'll
Oh,
just
right.
carry paper
Paper
plates at that
plates.
point, you know?
Absolutely.
And what's cool about
100%.
paper plates is you just throw them in the fire when you're done, they burn up and you move on with life. No trash, you know what I mean?
Yeah, move
So,
on.
but having the nice things, it just takes time. I mean,
Yeah,
when
but
I first did this, I didn't have all that crap. Like I plastic silverware and plastic, plates and whatever
but
we
you
could find.
even you say that, like, who cares about a fancy plate? Really?
As long as the food is good that's
Who
on the plate,
cares?
I don't even care if I got a
Who even
plate, bro.
cares? I've eaten out of the pan so
I
many
was gonna
times.
say, how many times have we been over there on the scuttle or the
Yeah,
griddle
just
and just,
eating it straight off.
eating
Yeah,
it?
right.
We had to stop Brad from eating the bacon when he was cooking it
Yep,
that one day.
absolutely,
You're like,
100%.
"Dude, you've had 900 pieces of bacon, chill, bro."
He's just over there using it like a vending machine, yeah.
Yeah, hey, present Brad was taking care of future Brad, you know?
Yeah. I gotta get Brad I wanna get Brad on here so bad.
Dude, he
My
needs to be
friend
on here.
my friend Brad's hilarious, and me and
He's
Brad have went a bunch as well. He's a Jeep
Yeah.
guy, um,
You know what
and he's
sucks is I got to go with him one time and he stopped wheeling, I'm just like, "What the heck,
I
man?"
know,
You're
he'll be
like, "You
back.
give me all this and
Yeah, Brad
here we
Br
are."
we need Brad on here just so you guys can get the banter of somebody that hates Toyotas. It's just quite honestly, he's got a built Jeep. It's a pretty built Jeep. It's new. It's like a 23, I think. New, new, new. This one is. He had a 22 before his
Yeah,
23,
yeah, yeah, he
and
did.
he's just anyways, he's got a fully built Jeep.
And it's nothing. I mean, like, when y'all 2 get together, he's over there yelling across the camp, "Charles!"
Yeah, me and Brad are pretty funny guys. So sometime I'll have to get Brad on here and see if I can get him
Open up a
going.
little
It'll
bit.
be yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
pretty fun,
right?
guys. But
I mean, you're good people too. I mean, we met you at Big Iron,
yep,
I think we were surrounded by like 47 beer cans that night or something, but
yeah,
we had a good
and
time. I mean, it's what it was
that's it.
about.
I
My kids
I
came over and robbed you of all your bacon and pancakes in the morning,
yeah,
and
whatever.
we were
And
feeding you too and drinking, and everybody was having a good time.
I mean, I just rolled up on Jay I didn't know Jay, and I just rolled up. I was like, "Hey, I'm here with the
You're
other
Jay,
guys."
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I'm this other guy. Like,
Which
"Hey, what's up?"
which number are you on here so I
Yeah,
can save your name? Because
yeah.
that's how it was for
I know you're in
rendezvous.
the group chat, but I don't know who the hell you are. But now we all know
Right.
each other really well.
And we
Um,
we started a group chat. I mean, hell, I think most days we have, if you don't read them, you have like 150 text messages between us
yeah,
almost
because
on the daily,
well, yeah,
you
and
know.
Blake is from Alabama,
Yep, yep, yep.
and
We met
then
Blake that time. We met
and
Jay. That was the first time for you to hang out with Johnny. That was not my first time to
Johnny,
hang
and
out with
then
Johnny.
Zion showed up.
Zion, that was my first time meeting him. Chris was there, or no, Chris wasn't there this time. He was out of town. That's right. But yeah, I mean, when we ended up taking that whole group, and we had like 7 or 8 people that weren't even with us that went on that trail run with us. I mean, we had a great time.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing that I don't know. And guys, comment on the YouTube video or the podcast later. But Tyson? How many times have we went wheeling outside of just us planning it? Like when me and you plan it, Well, hell, even the last couple times me and you planned it, we had new people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, every time that we've gone out, I mean, I think that we're pretty
We
open to
got somebody
inviting new
new.
people. Always,
We
we always have
always.
somebody new. I
And
mean,
we're
look for this whole polar bear camp club. We picked up Cody, and Cody
right.
started going with us, and he
And then
had
what
that
did he just do? What Cody just do?
got him a 4-door JL, baby.
Jeep. He had a Jeep. He had a Rav 4.
Yep, he had a
Well,
Rav4 and a Mitsubishi Montero Sport.
now
And old
he's got a Rubicon.
old Mitt was a two-wheel drive beast, though. It made it through this big. I mean, you would have been impressed. I was pretty impressed. So,
But I mean, he's in it now. I mean, and
oh
we
yeah,
all go enough that he doesn't have to be worried like, oh, I'm gonna go like once or twice. Like you could go. Okay, so you could go every weekend with one of us, and then Jay's going every Monday to Wednesday. Like you
yeah.
could literally go whenever. I
Just pick
think
a
the
day.
only
We're all
day
down.
I think the only day none of us are wheeling is like Thursday most of the time. Like most of
Or
the
a
time nobody's wheeling Thursday.
Sunday evening. That's our
Yeah,
relaxed
right.
time. I mean,
Like,
we have a rule. We want to be home by like noon, 1 o'clock at the
yeah.
latest on Sunday, just so that we can chill and relax before we got to go to work the next
But
day.
I mean,
But
we all really do enjoy it and get out a lot. So I mean, it makes sense when we pick up somebody in our group like Chris, who just didn't. I mean, he had the bushcraft side of things that he was liking doing. But
oh
then
yeah, I
again,
mean,
you want to go. I mean, riding with somebody else just isn't that much fun.
no, I mean,
Yeah,
Cody rode with us quite a few times just because they just didn't have an off-road capable vehicle.
right.
So even if you don't have an off-road capable vehicle, doesn't mean that you can't go camp with your crew. I mean,
Oh yeah,
like
we've drove
again,
people out.
yeah, you just have to be cognizant to, all right, this person wants to go camping with us. They don't want to do wheeling. So, you just plan your wheeling trips around coming back to that camp, and then you don't have anything to worry about. Or if you move camp, just make sure that it's accessible for a two-wheel drive or a low clearance vehicle or whatever the case may be, because there's plenty of that out there right now. I mean,
Hmm?
we're going down to Car Wash Falls. We're going to do that campsite that me, you, Brad, and Ty
Oh, the one
went
right by the
to.
water there.
Yeah, that's gonna be great, and that's an easy trail to get to. We're all meeting at different
Yep.
times, so, nobody has to wheel it to get there or anything crazy. It's
There's just that
literally
one
right
water
off.
crossing. That's
No,
it.
you don't even have to cross the water. I
Oh
mean, you
yeah, you
don't
can come
have to.
around the back
That's
way.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so that's one thing, I have the experience of that trail. Cody was like, "Hey, it's having me come from the north end, but you said you wanted to go through the south end." I was like,
Right.
"Yes,
Yeah.
you got to come off the one lane bridge. If you're not on the one lane bridge, you're going the wrong way." And that's, I mean, just
Yep.
having that experience and picking a spot, like we picked Woolham Ford whenever you come out because it's
Yep.
closer for you to drive down there.
Yep. And we'll
And,
just hit the Ozarks from there.
yeah, and then
Well,
we
more of
camp
it.
there for the night, and then we head out from there, and
And
that's how we're gonna do for rendezvous too. So
yeah.
it's not anything crazy. Like, you don't have to be crazy. Like,
Right. And we're getting a little long on time, but I still want to talk about this. But me and Tyson were talking about this earlier as well, and Jay is on here, and Jay agrees. Jay 100% agrees with me and Tyson before we even get this out of our mouth. But we have all done a little bit of the events. We've done it, and I think we'd all agree that doing it is a great thing to do. Do it
yeah, at least
once,
once.
at
Yep.
least once. Some of the different ones once. Meet
Mhm.
some cool people. But ultimately, like every event weekend, like for instance, a lot of people will go to more this weekend. And more might be something that I'm pulled to do next year if this gets bigger, for that purpose, to meet somebody or something, whatever. Meet some of you guys. But Tyson's going wheeling this weekend. He is not going to more. Jay will go wheeling this weekend, not going to more. We're not like the events to us now are kind of taken away from prime weekends to go just do the thing, and they're expensive. Like just to get into more in camp will cost more than my 6 hour drive there and back in gas.
Mhm. And then you're still expected to buy things when you're there,
Right.
and I'm
And
like, dude, if I'm spending $200-300 just to get there,
yeah,
that's just taken away from the money that I could have invested in
exactly. And
buying the product off of their website, dude. Like, I mean,
and it's not throwing any shade at any of it, but like
no,
again,
definitely not. I mean,
this
I
is
respect all of them that put
I'm
it
not
on.
and just exactly like I'm just not going to be that influencer that's like the stuff. Like
You want to
you,
meet Charlie? Come out to Woolham Ford in the middle of the summer,
yeah,
right?
right. I'll be there somewhere. We'll be floating somewhere. We'll be
Yeah,
doing something,
100%,
you know, and that's cool. And I'm a real big fan of that. And I hope that all these people that go to these events can meet people like our group of friends, because we all, not only do we all meet, but like there's not anybody in our group that doesn't go. Like we didn't meet
Yep.
people that don't do it.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
like quite literally, like I didn't know Tyson, I didn't know Chris, I didn't know Johnny, I didn't know Zion, I didn't know Jay. Every one of us met another one, and now we all go together.
Yep, yep, and we're just,
Brad too. You didn't know Brad.
yeah,
I
I
brought
didn't know
Brad.
Brad, and now I'm, like, begging to go back out with Brad, like, "Come on,
Correct.
Brad."
So like,
Where is Brad?
and I've been out with Brad's Jeep group with his dad and his dad's friends and his brothers and
Dude, and they
Jason that went
all
with us,
got fully built
built
Jeeps too,
Jeeps.
bro. Like,
Yeah.
they were putting you through the ringer, and you were
Yeah.
barely like, you
That's
just
when my
got in your Tacoma,
that's
like
that's when my truck probably got broke. That's
probably,
probably
like, let's be honest,
but yeah, we were
they go
winching a
hard.
lot. There was a lot of
Yeah.
winching going on. There was a
You
lot of
sent me that video, and you were hitting, like, 9,000 RPM just
sitting on the rocks. Yeah. That
heck
was,
yeah.
we were getting after it pretty hard. But I think we've all spent thousands of dollars fixing, going after it pretty hard at this point.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you're
I was
not
just
fixing
talking to
stuff.
Benji. Benji just like Benji with Newfound Overland. He's a friend of mine, and Benji had similar luck to me, but it was worse. And he had to replace his third member and his front diff. So he did a front diff, upper control arms, I think spindles, wheel bearings, one CV. I mean,
I mean, he also
he
wheels an older truck, and he does not. I mean,
well,
he is about it. Like,
he
he's
is
not
about
no
it,
slouch when it comes to coming
but
up to these obstacles.
none of, and I think we all go through that phase, and then we go through this phase, and then we're like, maybe we're done with that phase.
Hey, look,
You know,
I'm
maybe,
already talking to you about, hey, how would you feel about just camping a little bit more than the wheeling part?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like I mean, the camping stuff doesn't cost anything compared to the fixing the truck.
no, and I mean, unless you're going to like a pay to camp, which is perfectly fine. Like,
Yeah,
don't think that you can't go to campgrounds because you have an overland vehicle. Ain't nobody gonna look at you any different.
nobody
You're
cares.
out there doing, yeah. I mean, you're out there just doing it. It doesn't matter what you're into. I mean, we happen to be in the wheeling side of things because we all came from, doing stuff like this.
Mhm.
So I know Johnny has a huge itch to see everything that his Forerunner can do, and I'm right there with him. I'm like, let's go wheel, and you're a little more about the camping now. Chris is probably a little bit more. I mean, he still wheels hard. Like, don't get me wrong, but some of the luck that boy's had in in
He has
in some
not
of
had
these
good luck.
situations is it hasn't been
Yeah,
very right
he's
to
not
him.
he's not had the best luck. And and Jay just went out, and Jay's been lucky enough to have good luck, but Gallant, just he was just out of pocket.
Yeah.
He had a CV and a brake caliper, I think, and then that other guy with the taco had two CVs. I
Well, like
mean,
we were talking about the 4x4 24/7. I mean, we watch those guys. They're out in the middle of the deep Aussie tracks,
yeah,
and I mean, they don't have the ability to just say, "Hey, there's a Napa down the road. Let's go pick up a CV and throw it in the
right.
rig." Like, Jay just sent out in our group message that he's buying a bunch of spare parts for his rig. I
Mhm.
strongly feel like if you have a weak link somewhere, either have it with you or be prepared to replace it. And when you
I will have
replace
a
it,
seatbelt on in the back seat of somebody else's stuff. I am done. I am done. I'll find out what your Forerunner can do too.
yeah, a hundred
I am
percent.
I am I am
Yeah.
out on it now.
And
I have
and
spent
and
too much money.
my thing is when you go to do an upgrade, don't go back with the factory stuff.
I
Find
agree with
something
that
that's gonna be better so you're not replacing it again and again.
for sure.
Too
And you're
too
not,
many people don't sleeve their axles in their Jeeps, and they keep bending the rear axles. Just put a
yeah,
sleeve in. It's not
yeah,
that expensive, and it prevents that from ever happening again.
absolutely. Put put the 1-ton stabilizers in it. Like, yeah, make
Yeah,
sure
I
you're
mean,
upgrading. If that's,
you
and
know, and
especially if the aftermarket supports it.
I don't want to do suspension yet because I'm looking at doing a long travel kit for my Forerunner and it's like 15 grand. Ain't nobody got that just chilling in the bank to throw at it, especially
No,
when you got kids. So I
right.
mean, until something breaks, I'm just
And
gonna keep waiting.
and as of right now, you don't have nothing has broken. So like mechanically.
Knock on wood, bro. I'm
Right.
going out this weekend. Don't be putting that bad juju on me now.
Nothing has broken yet, but you are getting new tires. I mean, I'd say. I mean, I was a big push for you getting new tires. I was like, I think, in my opinion, and we're tire talk, whatever. I think once your tires, if you wheel a bunch, I think once you get around that 10 to 12, 30 seconds, that's trash.
I
Like
mean, it's time to come off. It
it's
does
you
it have
gotta
usable tread to drive down the highway? Absolutely.
absolutely
But is
yes.
it gonna hold up to the mud hole in the Ozarks? Probably not. It starts
No,
out at 18-30 seconds of an inch of tread.
correct. Yeah,
You're
it's
missing a lot of the tire. And really at 30 seconds of an inch of tread, the tread's really not that useful anymore. So
right.
you're kind of at that place already because you're not really going to zero. So,
No,
11
absolutely not.
seems high when you're driving on the highway. 11 is not high when you're
When you're
off-roading.
wheeling. Yeah.
It's
I
just
mean,
not.
and the way the compound changes from, new to like as you get down to the compound, it hardens. And that's
Yes,
less effective
absolutely.
off road as well.
The only other
So
thing that I wanted to bring up tonight was the fact that when you go to these off-road, like we have four-wheel concepts, they outsource all of their alignments. So if you're going to get suspension put on at a shop, two questions. Do they have a warranty? And who does your alignments? Are they doing them in house? Are you going to send my vehicle over to another shop to have it aligned? If I have an alignment problem, how do I handle that? A lot of people take them into these shops because yeah, they'll do all your suspension work. You don't even know, but they drove it 15 miles down the road to put an alignment on it, brought it back, tell you the vehicle's ready. You come back and it's pulling or something with the alignment's just not set right. You call that company and they're like, "Oh yeah, take it over to so and so shop and they'll fix it." Well, dude, I
I
did business with y'all. Like, how are you sending me somewhere else? You know what I mean? So,
yep.
and I mean, not to pour salt in the wound, but we had a friend of ours that went and had some work done. They promised it to him at a certain time. 5.5 hours later, he got it back after a 2.5 hour drive, and then it still wasn't 100%.
Not yeah, exactly.
So
And
it's about using reputable places for that kind of stuff too.
yeah, and when it comes to alignments, I go to a shop that does a lot of lifted trucks. A lot of lifted trucks, and they're aware that after you do suspension work, they have to reset the machine, and they're going off non-factory specs because I want a little more camber
Well, and
myself.
every lift kit in the instruction manual comes with the preferred alignment specs for your vehicle.
Yes.
And that doesn't matter if you do the 3-2 puck lift or if you do, I mean, literally anything, it'll come with those specs.
Yeah, and
And
ask
that's
your
what you bring in to the shop. I want it set to these specs.
and and not only when I say they reset the alignment machine, they're taking it away from the preconceived notion that my vehicle is stock. Another thing I ask my alignment shop, the one I use, I go, "How often do you recalibrate it?" And they recalibrate it every week. There is
Yeah.
you'll find alignment shops that don't, they'll be like, "Do what? Hasn't
Yeah.
been
What's a
recalibrated."
recalibration? Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
like,
might do
let
it
me call
once.
my hunter guy.
They might, yeah, exactly, exactly. And Hunter does is the company that owns most technology for alignments pretty
They're
standardly.
they're like in the game. It's crazy.
They're huge.
Yeah. So and the other thing too is how new is the alignment machine? Like
For sure.
a lot of people don't know that there is updates every year that a new vehicle is released. It updates, and if manufacturers change alignment specs from OEM to an updated alignment spec, if they don't buy that new software every year, then it's not going to have the new data. So those are all questions that you can ask, and whether you get the truthful answer or not, I mean, that's between them and whoever,
Well,
but
that's where I rely. I go back in time hard, and that's where I rely on forums, like legit, not Facebook groups where there's just trolling all over, like forums.
yeah, and I mean,
Yep.
I've worked in the service industry my entire life. I've had customers call me and they'd be like, "Who's your best alignment guy?" That's who I want to do my alignment.
Right.
Okay, cool. I'll set them
Yep.
up with an appointment. So I
Whatever.
mean,
Yeah.
it's okay to be like, who's your strongest technician? Who's your strongest alignment guy? Who works on the most Toyotas? If you bring it into a Toyota dealership and you drive a Toyota, chances are they're going to have a certified tech to work on it. But if you drive a Lexus and you bring it to a Toyota, it's probably not going to be the same service. Even though the Lexus and Toyota are the same, they're not the same. I mean, they
Right.
all have different quirks and things like
Well,
that. So I mean, it doesn't
and
have to go back to a dealership. It could be an aftermarket place, but just
and
know that if
have
you
to
take it
for sure.
to an
And
OEM, they're going to
and when
set it
you're
to
dealing
OEM
with
specs.
and you guys also got to take into account when you're dealing with shops of any capacity, you've got to take into account the audience of the shop. Like if you go to Toyota and something is broken, they're replacing parts. There's a difference
100%.
between a dealership mechanic and a fix-it mechanic.
Mhm.
There's a great difference between a career dealership mechanic and a career specialty something.
Aftermarket
Right.
specialty.
Right, for
I mean,
sure.
when I took the ASE tests for like the electrical, one of the questions that came up, if an alternator's not putting out 14.5 volts, like what do you do? If it's pulling out 12, I'm like, you replace it. And no, it's actually you rebuild it. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
who's rebuilding alternators
And you can
nowadays?
buy a kit at a O'Reilly's to do that.
But nobody's doing like,
No, right.
okay, if you have a wheel cylinder that blows out, what happens? You replace the wheel cylinder. Did you know you could rebuild it, re-put seals in it?
Yeah,
It's true.
and that's another thing me and you come with, like, I just got upper control arms. I got upper control arms that I can replace the ball joint in. But that's not all upper control arms.
Nope.
But they're serviceable. They have grease zerks so I can grease them. So
Yep.
that part, if that part wears out, it's my bad,
I
you know?
mean, OEM Toyotas, none of that stuff is greasable. None
Oh,
of it. No,
not
the
anymore
only
anyways.
the only two grease points on a Toyota 4Runner is on the drive shaft.
That's not
And
even the
that's
case on mine.
and that's on a slip yoke and the drive shaft where the U joints meet, where
Yep.
the slip yoke goes. And literally you're pumping grease into the slip yoke and that joint, and that's it. That's all you have. But if you drive a Chevy Tahoe, there's like 12 Zerk fittings underneath the Chevy Tahoe. So I mean, it really depends on what manufacturer you're driving. I mean, Toyota is really reliable, and the reason why they make it reliable is because they put non-serviceable items in there. You can't service the ball joints. So does that mean that they're last forever? No. But if you're not putting, grease in the Zerks fittings, then they're going to wear out. So Toyota did it where all of them are sealed systems now. So, I mean, it just really depends on what vehicle you're going with. I strongly suggest getting something that is maintainable because you can keep it and make it last longer if you can
For
maintain it.
sure. And Jay just brought up a point. That's a great point that again, our group of guys knows, but he's like, also when you're going to a specialty shop, make sure they've engaged in that specialty activity so they also have real world experience. You don't want to go to a specialty suspension shop that specializes in autocross for your for your for your GX 460 that has
Yeah,
external
you're not.
reservoir shocks. Like make sure the shop you're going to, just because it's a specialty suspension shop or alignment shop, like make sure they're aware of your specific situation and how to handle that. And I mean, just ask some qualifying questions like, how many lifted trucks do you guys do? You know, I've got fully upgraded suspension. I've got this. I've got that. Can you guys handle doing this alignment? And honestly, if they ask you more questions about it, that's probably a real dude. And if they're like, sure, I would say probably not.
Yeah,
So that would be
100%.
my, yeah, like, oh,
If
what
they're
did
not
you
convincing
change?
you to come in the door, like, don't even go.
Check it, guys. Like, again, because our group of guys, like, getting an alignment is rough these days, guys. Like, getting a good alignment and a good alignment guy. My last really good alignment guy retired, so I'm working off his reference now. I'll be completely honest, really good. Not as good as that guy was though.
Yeah,
Really
and that's
good
usually
though.
what ends up happening. I mean, people move on, they retire,
Yep.
that kind of stuff, it's inevitable. And the problem is, being in this industry, there's not a whole lot of talent coming up from the minors, you know what I mean? Like, we're not
Unfortunately.
getting people that have been turning wrenches since they were, in diapers, it's just you're not getting that breed of animal anymore.
Oh.
So unfortunately, it kind of sucks because you're relying on the older guys, and unfortunately, us older guys, we're going to end up retiring at some point. So
And
hopefully, you find somebody that's not too old and that's set in at their place,
and
and
the
you
real
might have
old
to follow them. I mean,
and the real old guys that were replacing bearings and pressing bearings and doing some, light fabrication, like that just doesn't exist anymore. Like
yeah, well, they were part of the same group that I was. If it's broke, we fix it, and if we can't fix it, then we pay somebody that can fix it. But
correct.
I always take a stab at everything that breaks, whether it's in the house, in the car, it don't matter. I go and take a stab at it. I mean, hell, YouTube has saved my bacon so many times
Hundreds.
because you can just watch a video and be like, "Oh, that's not that bad. Like this is pretty similar to what I'm dealing with. Let's just try it." You'd
Yep.
be surprised, and there's a lot of people out there. I mean, to changing wiper blades, to changing a battery, to full engine overhauls. I mean, you can learn a lot from YouTube watching somebody do it. If you're like me, I can watch somebody do it and I can go and do it. Some people don't learn that way. It's perfectly fine. Go in there, take a stab at it. It's literally a puzzle. Whatever comes off has to go back on. Whatever's broken has to be fixed. It comes off a certain way, goes on a certain way. There's some vehicles that require specialty tools. That's just something that you're going to learn that you're going to need.
And and don't think that you have to buy that specialty tool. In a lot of cases, your local parts store has rentable tools. Like
A
those
hundred
specialty
percent.
tools you can rent.
Yep. Inner tie rod end pullers, all that stuff. I
I
mean,
just did it. I was like, I'm
yeah.
gonna buy one
And
of these.
it's super cheap to rent, dude. It's like 30-40 bucks for
Well,
the day. I mean,
and the way it works, I go to O'Reilly's, and the way O'Reilly's works is I paid $94 to rent the inner tie rod end tool, the big socket tool, right?
yep,
And when I returned it, I got my $94 back.
100%.
That's
And
how it
that's
goes. It was free essentially.
so you're out no money, and
Zero
if you kept
dollars.
it, you were out 94 bucks.
And I have a
Big
tool.
deal. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
like,
Yep.
they're just
Exactly.
literally letting you rent it for the cost of whatever the tool costs them to replace it.
Exactly.
So,
And
I mean, and if you bring it back, if even if they gave you back $89, $10 for the day to rent
right.
it was worth every freaking penny, because
100%.
I'm telling you right now, $158 an hour is like 90% of the flag rate labor hours right now in the state of Arkansas. I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, but we're the same
So,
way. I'm in Missouri. It's 150 as well.
yeah, the difference is in Missouri, and this is a little fun fact for any of you that work or live in the Northwest Arkansas area. Missouri's 15 minutes away. Missouri does not charge sales tax on labor. Arkansas charges
The
sales tax
service.
on parts and labor.
Yep.
So, those are little niches that you learn from going from state to state. I mean, I bought my Forerunner in Fort Worth while I was living here in Northwest Arkansas because it was 10 grand less and I worked for a daggum dealership. You know what I mean? Like,
Taxes.
tell
Yep.
me, yeah, like, how
Yep.
does that
It
make any
matters.
sense? So, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just it's small things like that, and you just learn it from doing it, and being just paying attention. I mean, just don't let anybody take advantage of you.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing.
And I'd say, even as we go back to YouTube, if you want to confirm everything we're saying, you could probably there's probably other people saying the same stuff all over YouTube. Literally, within the
Yeah,
racing community, the off-roading community, like, don't just assume everybody's giving you a good, correct alignment. Don't assume everybody is, you get a new set of tires and they're like, they'll fit. Well, what's they'll fit mean? Are they going to rub, or do they fit in the wheel well? Are they going to hit my spindle? Are they going to hit my upper control? Like, guys, like, just really try and vet people. Like, you can ask real basic questions without knowing anything and
yeah,
just go,
and I
what's
mean,
that? Like, what's that mean? Like,
exactly. And my biggest thing is customers that just buy things and they don't even know what they're buying. You know what I
which
mean?
is a
Like,
lot of them.
it's crazy. And I'm like, well, what are you looking for in a tire? And they're like, well, I want the biggest thing I can put on my truck. Well, that's the factory size, 265, 7017 on your Forerunner. Oh, you want bigger? You need a lift kit. Well, we install the 3.2 lift. Well, So you can run a 33, or you want 35s. Well, now you're talking probably a 4 or 5 inch lift,
Or a lot
you
of
know,
sawing.
or yeah, or a lot of sawing. I mean, I had a guy that crammed 35s, or no, 37s on his forerunner with a 3.2 level, and he was doing the body mount chop relocate, and he ended up catching three of his main wiring harnesses on fire. There's not a
Yeah.
fix for that. You know what the fix is? Is to
Yep.
take the whole wiring harness out of the vehicle
Yep.
and put a new wiring harness in there, because I don't know if you've ever seen a wiring harness, but inside a wiring harness, there's like 9 or 10 wires inside the loom going every which direction.
Yep. It's about 50 to 60 pounds of wire all over the
And it's
place.
insane. He fried 3 of them, all
Yeah.
3 main ones. I mean, it was $9,000 worth of work, because you got to take the whole cab off the vehicle. You got to rip
Yeah.
out dashboards
All
and
to
everything.
try
I mean, it's
and again, did the tires fit on the wheel and in the wheel well? Yeah, but you couldn't turn it.
you couldn't
I mean,
turn
so
it.
you couldn't
Yeah. I
turn it
mean,
anywhere. Like, what do you
so
guys? Come on.
and then if you're running, a 6-inch lift, which you can fit 37s, well, now you're talking extended brake lines, you're talking extended steering shaft, you're talking, extended sway bar links if you're running sway bars, or you're taking sway bars off. You're looking at, relocating differential drops and all this. I mean, that is all mechanical stuff that is
It
going to
has
be
to
at
happen.
different angles than what it was meant to design for. So unless you're changing, everything, I don't feel like a 6-inch lift is really gonna be the bee's knees. Do I want one for my Forerunner? Absolutely. But do I wanna go through, I mean, it's 15 grand for a 6-inch, Kings with the total chaos, like, I mean, it gets up there, 15 grand. But that doesn't include any of the other stuff that you don't think about. I mean, you
Bushings.
have to
Yeah.
extended tie rods, because you're gonna go wider on your suspension, and then are you
And
gonna fit down the trail because you're so wide?
when you have
You
to
might
build
have
your own CVs with the long travel, you can't buy long travel CVs. You got to take the CV apart and put a longer shaft onto
Yep,
the
or run an
joints.
intermediate shaft, and that's
Yeah.
just another weak spot for something to break. I mean, if you're out in Colorado and you're doing the rock gardens and this and that, do you need a lot of flex? Absolutely. If you're doing the Ozark National Forest, do you need a lot of flex? Probably not. I mean, it's just a different
And
animal. So it
and
really
again,
depends on where your region is and where you're gonna be
if
wheeling.
if we just said 10 words you don't understand, you don't need that. Like, if we like,
Yeah.
for real, like,
Yeah,
for real.
exactly. Yep,
Like, come
definitely.
on, guys. Like just stop, you know? But
Right.
anyways, we could probably go forever, but we've been going long, long, long. So
Yes, sir.
I
Almost an hour
will
and a half.
yeah,
I
we'll be
appreciate
back
the
next
time.
week. Absolutely. I appreciate Tyson. Next week I'm gonna have Jay on with Toyota Trucks of Arkansas. It's gonna be a whole lot less of me jabbing. It's gonna be a whole lot of him talking about Toyota Trucks of Arkansas. They got a lot going on. There's a lot
Man,
going
he's
on with
got
Toyota
some
Trucks of
cool
Arkansas.
stuff going on, man. I talked to Jay. I'm super stoked for his group. Like,
Yep.
I
And
love it.
Toyota Trucks of Arkansas is going to be involved in pretty much most Toyota Land Cruiser Association events and Toyota events. So
Yep.
he'll be able to kind of, again, if anybody drives something different than a Toyota, just haphazardly, that's what we all have. But he'll be talking a lot about that and what they're doing and things they're doing to clean up the trails and taking donations and what they're doing with those donations and any proceeds they're getting, like what they're doing with those proceeds. They're doing a lot of really, really cool stuff. And I'm just touching on it basically because he'll get way into it. And I'll have
Yeah.
him on next week on Tuesday. So hopefully you guys liked having somebody else talk besides just me. And hopefully next week you guys get a kick out of Jay because he'll be talking about all this really, really cool stuff that they're doing. So, hope y'all have a good one, and I will see you next week.